We can all admit that the DS Pokemon games were honestly some of the greatest games of all time. They really had something going for them, and it honestly is really crazy. Still to this point, we can all consider them to be non-matched by any other game released to the standards. You had games like Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver, Platinum, Black and White 2, and Pokemon Diamond and Pearl. And not to say that countless other spin-off games, with 4 different Pokemon mystery dungeons and one still considered the best to this point, Explorer of the Skies. Now honestly, all of this being released within 7 years of each other is definitely really crazy. And it leads you to believe and ask yourself, is something like this generation ever going to be returning, or was this just a luck of the sea draw? Let's get straight into it. When I talk about the DS Pokemon games, I get filled with joy because honestly, these games are truly special. You might have grew up with these games, or you consider them just to be the best games because the overall features and gimmicks. But honestly, when it comes to think about it, these games did have something truly special, and each individual game felt different in many ways. If you look at it, Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver had 2 things that were fantastic. In fact, 2 might just be an understatement. It had probably hundreds of different things that just made this game click. But let's go with the main 2, like being able to make your Pokemon follow you really simply. This is a simple feature and a simple concept that it feels like they never got right ever again. After this game, that was pretty much the end of Pokemon being able to follow you. But there's honestly something truly special about having one follow you, because if you spent hundreds of hours shiny hunting this one Pokemon, now you can make that guy follow you and say, hey friend, look at my thing, there you go. Is it the DS that made the Pokemon games truly special, or is it just the mechanics in the games? Also, you had 16 different gyms, which is honestly really crazy. No other Pokemon game stands up to this day. In fact, you were able to go back to Kanto, which is honestly a crazy thing. Although that wasn't exclusive to the DS, it still is a very awesome feature. Plus, in Black and White and Black and White 2, you had such a unique, interesting story, which is great for a Pokemon game. To this day, there's nothing that really beats out the story of that game. For some reason, that game is fantastic story-wise, and I honestly agree. Also, when it comes to seasonal events, that one was definitely really interesting. You can't really see another Pokemon games that has seasonal events quite like this one. It just was fantastic. And also, there was just a unique way of exploring. If you go to one different corridor, you can go in the corridor, all of a sudden I find a heal potion, or whatever the case may be. Yes, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet did have an open world aspect, but it isn't quite like this. Now when we talk about it, are these games going to be returning in the glory that is this state? Well, I honestly think that the answer could actually surprise you. It might be yes, because if you looked at it, Nintendo was exploring at some point with some sort of dual screen system, but you don't necessarily even need a dual screen anymore to experience these games. The first option was in fact use your phone, because we obviously see Nintendo explore with the idea of being able to just pick up your phone and use your phone, kind of like what they did with Zelda Notes, where you had the screen on the top and then you had Zelda Notes on your phone telling you exactly where the Koroks are. That definitely could work in this case with Pokemon. In other cases, maybe just release another Wii U gamepad or something that's a cheap alternative to having to buy another Nintendo Switch. But if you do have another Nintendo Switch, since there's something called Game Share or Gameplay Link or whatever the case may be, this would work just fine. Grab your old Nintendo Switch and there you go. You can use the Joy-Cons as the remote and use the screen itself that delivers gameplay, and there you go. It works just fine. But if you wanted to play just like a standard DS, technically you can just rotate the Nintendo Switch sideways and have your whole DS experience that way. It honestly would work pretty interesting. We've already seen this before with the Nintendo Switch. If you were slapping on your pirate hat and doing a little bit of tinkering, that did work. But overall, this is definitely something that we can look forward to in the future. I can't wait to see DS Pokemon games return because, like I said, these are some of the best generations of all time. In fact, even the spin-off games were something truly special. The Nintendo Switch never really got the grip of Pokemon. It feels like it still was experimenting with how 3D functions work. And even if you look back, the 3DS might have had Pokemon a little bit different than the Switch does now. It seems like they got it back and they're just going backwards and backwards and backwards. You had games like Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee that really had it in some way. It gave you that different and unique experience while also keeping Pokemon fresh and great. It honestly is pretty cool. It's like, why didn't they run with that art style? Because everyone now is just complaining about how the game looks. The trees, they're so horrible. But now if you look at it, you could have easily seen these games once again. I honestly believe that if they were going to do something, the DS would be the proper move. After all, it seems like we are going to be getting these games at some point, and funny story, we might actually see Pokemon Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald in 2026. This would be fantastic because I can't express how much older Pokemon games are amazing, especially waiting for the next one. Winds and Waves is honestly going to change how we look at Pokemon. And I honestly think that with the Nintendo Switch 2's power, we can finally see a Pokemon that is worth dreaming about. Like honestly, this is what we've been waiting for, what all of this trial and error has gone to. The Nintendo Switch 2 giving you a Pokemon game in 2027 that's going to be unlike any other experience. It's going to be something truly special, and honestly consider to check out this video right here if you want to know what Pokemon Scarlet and Violet holds, a secret key to something brand new. It honestly is going to be amazing. So if we look at it, all of these games, the DS games, the Game Boy games, the old Pokemon games as a whole, returning in some day. Yes, I honestly believe that the answer should be yes. And through all of the years of waiting and asking and wondering, DS, are you coming back yet? It might actually finally be time. Finally be time to shine and party once again. Just like we're back. And honestly, you know what's crazy? The fact that these games, all 20 of these games, released within 7 years of the console. This console lasted from 2005 all the way up to 2012 about. Honestly, that is definitely really crazy when you come to think about it. How in the world did we get such bangers within that time? We haven't really seen a Pokemon game this appreciated in a long time. It seems like Game Freak is trying more and more for the Pokemon game to feel, well, interesting to say the least. Overall, I definitely think that DS Pokemon games are on the horizon at some point, and potentially that whole generation might actually be back, with games being actually feeling like Pokemon games once again. I'm not just saying this because, hey, these are games, this is what everyone likes. It's definitely the truth. And I honestly believe that if they're going to do the next remaster and remake, it is going to be black and white 1, 2, maybe even 3 if you want to look at it. But also, it's going to be awesome. Overall, do you think the DS era is going to come back? Not only for the Pokemon games itself, but for the feeling on what it felt like to be a Pokemon fan back in like 2010. It was fantastic. Overall, let me know what your favorite Pokemon game is in the comments section down below. I would really appreciate it. And anyways, thank you so much for being here. See you in the next one.